Hey, this is a brief section on metalworking fluids and their selection. If you remember, we talked about these types of fluids in chapter 22. This is just an addition and kind of a review on this topic. Let's discuss why do we need to use metalworking fluids since they have many advantages. First of all, with the help of them, we can reduce friction in between the chips and other tool workpiece. So with the help of these fluids, metalworking fluids, we can reduce the forces applied on our workpiece, forces applied on the machine, and overall energy will be reduced with the help of these metalworking fluids. And on the other hand, since they are reducing friction, they will have less wear on the tool and also less wear on the die and other kind of molds. And furthermore, with the help of these special metalworking fluids, we can improve the performance of material flowing through the specific tools, dies, especially in extrusion or other kind of forging process, let's say. And also, these type of fluids are acting as a thermal barrier between the hot material and the dies, molds once again, so that if you use such metalworking fluids, then you can use these types of dies and molds for many times, not just for a single time, for one time, but with the help of them, maybe you can use them for 20 times. And lastly, similarly, once you use such special metalworking fluids, again, in die molds, in casting, in forging operations, it will be easier for you to remove your casted product or your shaped product from the out of mold. What are the types of these metalworking fluids? We know that oils is one of the fundamental metalworking fluids, and it's a kind of a lubricant. It has almost no coolant effect, and that's why we usually prefer to have emulsions, which is a mixture of usually oil and water. Once you mix them together, you will have some lubricant behavior and some coolant behavior. So when we go back to oils, we have different types of oils, mineral, animal, and vegetable oils, but in machining, we mostly prefer to use some mineral oils since their performance is much better in terms of lubrication. And since why they are not as very good at cooling, since their thermal conductivity is very low and their specific heat is low compared to the other liquid, and that's why you need to have a kind of an emulsion so that we will have some lubrication and some coolant actually available in our machining operation. And furthermore, we have some synthetic and semi-synthetic solutions. In these, we make use of inorganic materials, some chemicals, and obviously, again, they are mostly dissolved in water. So we have huge amount of water, and then we put some little amounts of such synthetic solutions to have, again, some lubrication and some coolant effects. And then we have other types of greases, waxes. They are rarely used, but again, for some specific machining processes, for specific types of materials, they may be acting better. And then we have some additives. You can use these specific additives to improve some specific properties of your metalworking fluids by adding them again into water. Then we have some solid lubricants. These are quite different. They are solid, they are not fluids, but again, they're not used frequently. In some specific rare cases, we prefer to use them. The most popular one is actually glasses. So yes, as we make use of glasses for hot extrusion and hot forging, for the processes where the material has high temperatures and it is shaped inside a kind of a mold or a die. And if that's the case, we use glasses to actually have a kind of a thermal barrier between the material, hot material, and the mold itself, so that mold will not be deformed a lot, and we can use the same mold, same die, once again with the help of glass, since it has poor thermal conductivity. It's not transferring heat in a high-speed manner. That's why we can use them especially in hot processes. So how do we decide on the best type of metalworking fluids? We have several factors and we should be considering all these factors: the type of workpiece material, die material, the overall manufacturing process, the processing parameters, the number of products to be produced, the compatibility with the tool and the workpiece material, and the quality of the surface. And maybe another important issue is the method of application, whether we are doing it in a kind of a pool, whether we are transferring the cutting fluid through the tool or fluiding application. So depending on the application, we may need to change our metalworking fluid. And another important issue is the removal of this cutting fluid after the process is over. Since if you use oils, then that means you need to spend some more time to remove the oil over your workpiece after the machining is done. But if you are using some water, then it's very easy. In very less time, you can remove this water from your machined surface. And then you should also need to consider how to maintain this fluids, store them, their race, and also their effects on environment should also be considered. And lastly, maybe the most important one for some companies, the cost of all these metalworkings are, you should consider them and then decide on the best metalworking fluid for your specific application. And industry, we mostly make use of water-based fluids, and as you see, it's about 90% of all the time. And what are the requirements of these metalworking fluids? First of all, they shouldn't have any actually harmful residues after the production is over. They shouldn't corrode the workpiece or our equipment. So after the machining is over, we shouldn't be worrying about the quality of our workpiece or the corrosion on the surfaces and the machine. And another important issue is that you should be checking the quality of your metalworking fluid from time to time, do some filtering on it. Otherwise, you cannot reuse it in your machine. This is a must for machining operations where you are using different metalworking fluids. And on the other hand, you should be always careful about the effects on biology and environment. Otherwise, you may be doing harm on environment. And that's why you should find a kind of a proper way of disposing these metalworking units. There might be some special companies collecting all these used metalworking fluids, and then they may do extra filtering operations and bring the fluid back to you. And in order to actually prevent some growth of some specific bacteria, some viruses, special chemicals might be used inside your metalworking fluids. With the help of them, the smell of your metalworking fluid will be fine. Otherwise, the metalworking fluid after some operations may smell awful, and you cannot do machining while this metalworking fluid is around. And these days, actually, we have some improvements in terms of these environmental issues, and we can easily recycle these kind of actually metalworking fluids, reuse them or filter them. And there are new regulations regarding the metalworking fluids, and hopefully in near future, things will be much better for the nature.